Welcome back to the End of Days Chronicles channel. During that time, Palestine had a governing body that limited the authority of local leaders. This created a complex relationship between Jewish religious leaders, who were responsible for maintaining order in the Temple of Jerusalem, and the Roman authorities, who sought to maintain political control. How did this relationship shape the actions of Annis and Caiaphas, the influential high priests of that era? What were the differing views of the Sadducees and Pharisees, and how did their beliefs impact their positions of power? How did Annis and Caiaphas use their authority to enforce religious laws and control the temple affairs? And what role did they play in the arrest, trial, and crucifixion of Jesus? Join us on a journey through history to uncover the intricate dynamics between religious leaders and Roman occupation, and the lasting impact of Annis and Caiaphas in shaping the course of events. Stay tuned until the end. The Temple of Jerusalem held significant spiritual and religious importance in Jewish life. Each year, thousands of pilgrims would visit the temple to offer sacrifices and fulfill their religious obligations. This gave the temple immense symbolic and political value to those who controlled it. In the context of Roman occupation and heightened religious tension, Annis and Caiaphas emerged as influential religious leaders. Both belonged to the powerful Saducees sect. The Sadducees and Pharisees held differing views on Scripture. For instance, the Sadducees did not believe in the resurrection of the dead or the spiritual realm, whereas the Pharisees did. The Sadducees tended to be wealthy and were able to secure influential positions through their connections with the Romans. As a result, the majority of the high priests were Sadducees, and they held significant roles in the Sanhedrin. Consequently, Annis and Caiaphas, being Sadducees, were able to assume the position of high priests. This elevated them to central figures in Jewish religious life, granting them power and authority over temple affairs. The relationship between the Jewish religious leaders and the Roman authorities was shaped by the context of Roman occupation and the heightened religious tensions of the time. The relationship between religious leaders and the Roman occupation was intricate and often strained. The presence of the Romans created a constant fear of rebellion and the potential loss of privileges. This tense atmosphere serves as the backdrop for understanding the actions and decisions of Annis and Caiaphas, particularly regarding their involvement in the arrest and trial of Jesus. With this historical context in mind, let us delve deeper into who Annis and Caiaphas were. Annis assumed the role of high priest in 6 AD during the governance of Quirinius, the governor of Syria. He held this position until approximately 15 AD. During his tenure as high priest, Annis established a system of familial succession, ensuring the continuation of religious power within his family. His control over the high priesthood granted him significant authority within the Temple of Jerusalem. He was responsible for overseeing rituals, administering sacrifices, and enforcing religious laws. Not only did this position make him a religious leader, but it also elevated him as a prominent political figure, as the temple held great power and influence in Jewish society. Annis also exercised control over the temple tax and currency exchange. In Luke 19:45, we witness Jesus driving out those who had turned the temple into a den of robbers, accusing them of profaning religion. The trade of animal sellers and moneylenders in the temple was an incredibly lucrative business in the city. There are references in the Jewish Talmud that describe Annis's house as cursed, wealthy, and morally corrupt. Alongside the corrupt leaders of the priesthood, their presence defiled the sanctuary. These accounts attribute this to Annis's involvement in plotting persecutions. On the other hand, Caiaphas, who was married to Annis's daughter, came from a similarly wealthy and aristocratic background. Caiaphas assumed the role of high priest around 18 AD, under the appointment of Valerius Gratus. His appointment marked a pivotal moment in the biblical narrative, mirroring the path of his father-in-law. Annis and Caiaphas assumed prominent leadership roles within the Temple of Jerusalem and the wider Jewish community. Their relationship holds interest and significance, even though Annis was no longer the high priest at the time. His influence remained palpable. By marrying Annis's daughter, Caiaphas became part of a priestly dynasty that wielded considerable control over religious and political affairs in Judea. One of Caiaphas's notable statements in the biblical narrative occurred after Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. The news of this miraculous event reached the council, and during their gathering Caiaphas posed a famous question found in the Gospel of John. "You know nothing at all. You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than that the whole nation perish." Caiaphas's words reflected the belief that Jesus' death would prevent a revolt and safeguard the interests of the Jewish religious leadership. His statement can be seen as a prophecy, indicating that Jesus would die for the entire nation and bring together the dispersed children of God. According to the biblical account, following Caiaphas's declaration, the council collectively agreed to kill Jesus. Tensions between Jesus and the Jewish religious leadership, primarily represented by Annis and Caiaphas, had been mounting throughout Jesus' ministry. Jesus preached a religious reform that challenged established teachings and practices, placing him in direct conflict with the religious authorities. It was within this context that Jesus was arrested and brought before the high priest for questioning. Initially, Jesus was brought before Annas, and then Caiaphas, who was acting as the high priest at that time. These interrogations marked a crucial juncture in the biblical narrative. Annas and Caiaphas actively sought evidence against Jesus to support accusations of blasphemy and sedition. However, Jesus predominantly remained silent and did not provide a compelling defense. These interrogations ultimately led to the decision to send Jesus to the Roman governor Pontius Pilate for trial and condemnation. Importantly, Annas and Caiaphas played significant roles in the decision to accuse Jesus and in advocating for his death sentence. Their combined political and religious influence greatly contributed to Jesus' subsequent crucifixion on Mount Golgotha. Following the resurrection of Jesus, Caiaphas refused to accept the evidence of his resurrection. As a result, he imprisoned and attempted to kill Peter and John, and later participated in the death of Stephen. Caiaphas also authorized Saul to arrest any Christians he found in Damascus. Caiaphas played a notable part in the persecution of Jesus' followers, viewing them as a threat to the religious and political authority of the time. However, around AD, Caiaphas was deposed by Vitellius, the Roman governor of Syria. During the same period, Pontius Pilate was also deposed. It is said that Caiaphas met a miserable end when he was murdered and dragged away by the Romans during a Jewish revolt in the year 36 AD. In contrast, Annas died by banging his head against the walls after realizing his contribution to the death of the Messiah. Additionally, it is worth noting that Annas' grandson, the son of Theophilos, was appointed high priest by Agrippa II in 65 AD, succeeding Jesus of Gamala. He served as the last high priest before the Romans destroyed the Second Temple in 70 AD. As we conclude this exploration, we are reminded of the enduring impact that the decisions and actions of these two individuals had on history. Their roles in the narrative of Jesus' crucifixion serve as a testament to the complexities of life and the choices we make. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in future videos.